Welcome to the Dark Somnium. Make sure to subscribe for more stories. And if you like the music I compose, you can listen to it on Spotify and iTunes. With that said, enjoy the video. This encounter happened 2 years ago in Oregon. The previous encounter was 8 years ago in Oregon as well. It was my birthday in April. We took a deep woods hiking and camping trip. That's my favorite thing to do. I also remember the incident well, as this was about the same time my wisdom tooth was flaring up, and I was in pain. Not excruciating, but annoying. We spent the day driving around the woods and hiking. When nightfall had started to set in, it had rained all day. Sometimes hard, other times it's barely a mist. But as the sun started to set, you could tell there was a nasty spring storm rolling in. We drove up to a remote forest that hasn't been maintained in what seems like years. The trees had grown into the road and scraped against the vehicles, but we liked camping off the beaten path to avoid people. We'd come to an area where the road widened on the top and were surrounded by second-growth forest, some scattered old-growth trees. We stopped the car and prepared to go to sleep. I don't sleep in a tent anymore. I flat out refuse, so we slept in the car. We'd sat in the car, listening to the wind pick up. It was going to be a nasty storm. The trees were rocking, and it was a bit unnerving. Being on a high point of the terrain made the wind a bit worse. We had the windows down as there was more wind and the rain was only a drizzle. That night wasn't particularly cold, so it was comfortable to have the windows down. That's when I started to hear noises. Every so often, I'd hear what sounded like two men talking off in the woods. You could hear it more clear from my side of the car when the wind calmed down in between gusts. You could kind of hear it when the wind picked up, though more drowned out. I could tell that whatever was making these sounds was off in the distance. You couldn't make out anything they were saying. It sounded like they were having a very continuous conversation, though, as there was never any breaks in the noise. My roommate was talking, and I asked him to stop for a moment and listen. He heard the voices and didn't know what to make of it. Then things got ugly. We started to hear what sounded like a baby crying off in the distance on my roommate's side of the car. That, for some reason, made me absolutely nauseous. It's the middle of nowhere, pitch black outside, and these noises are not your typical crickets, and they're louder than the winds of the storm. As these noises seemed to get closer, we decided we had enough and started to drive out of the forest. When we got about 2 miles down the road, it intersected with a more maintained forest road. We stopped there to organize all the stuff, as we had gotten comfortable, leaving blankets and food out. As we sat there organizing the stuff, we heard the sound of people talking again in the distance. Then they stopped altogether. We sat there in silence for about 15 minutes. You could hear somebody running down the road from behind the car. It ran right up to the car faster than anything I had ever seen. It's like it floated. Then this huge black mass comes right up the driver's side window. That's when my friend floored it and we took off. I couldn't see any details of the creature as it was pitch black outside, but it was extremely large. It was dark. We ended up getting to the main highway and drove another half hour down the ridge and camped in another location. By then, we were exhausted. Nothing happened at the other location, but I was always on edge. It was a birthday I'll never forget. I still deep wilderness hike, but with precaution. Even then, I still feel intimidated at times. As you're walking, you seem to feel fine, but when you stop for a break, you catch that feeling that sometimes feels like something is staring daggers through you from the tree line. So I never believed in the supernatural until I was 18. Me and my friend played with a Ouija board. Story for another time. After the ensuing craziness from the escapades, I'm a full-on believer. On with the actual sighting. I lived in a rural part of Mississippi. I believe my town has something like 247 people in it. Everybody knows everybody. Weird things have happened before, like animals being slaughtered or going missing, and that sort of thing. Naturally, we chalked it up to coyotes or other critters. I'm an avid hunter, so I'm heading out in the woods with my bow, a fully decked out Matthews Creed. I got out a little earlier than usual, so it's still pretty dark. I've never minded the woods before, so all I planned on doing was relaxing in my stand for a while, as I didn't feel like stalking today. It's not too far away from daylight, so the birds and other wildlife are starting to make their morning calls. Usually pretty peaceful, right? I swear to God, in the span of a second, everything in that patch of woods shut up at the exact same time. It's dead silence. I didn't even try to be subtle. That alone scared the piss out of me. So naturally, my scared self froze and just listened for anything. My thought was, oh shit, something's out there with me, which freaked me out even more. Then I started to think maybe it was just a bear or bobcat, which I still was terrified to meet up with, but at least it gave me a logical answer. I figured I could hear a bear coming, but I knew big cats were renowned for stalking people without their knowing, which scared the daylights out of me. I decided to keep moving towards my stand, post up, and just point my bow down the tree. After what seemed like forever, I freaking made it. I shuffled up the stand, pulled out my knife just in case, and just listened. Dawn was definitely breaking now, which made me feel better. Still no sounds of wildlife, which was getting more and more eerie. No, my stand is perched on the side of a creek. The creek wasn't very deep, like maybe to the top of your ankle. About the only sound I could hear was the slight noise of running water. Then I hear something to my right, and it's running fast. I instantly raise my bow and wait. It's getting louder and louder, closer as well. I almost screamed when I saw this bastard. It literally looked like something out of Dog Soldiers, only more muscular. This thing busted through the brush, ran down the slope through the creek, then disappeared on the other side. I've seen some shit, let me tell you, but I was shaking like a newborn babe. I didn't ease off the drawstring for like 10 minutes, which is a long time to hold a bow, by the way. I mean, this thing was huge, like 6'5", 7'5", 250 pounds of just no. And I've seen bears and the like before. They don't run like that. Anyways, after that, the sun really started to show and the birds started chirping. I calmed myself down, so I got out of there in a hurry. While I was terrified at the time, it's definitely going to be one of the coolest memories to look back on. I'm just going to move my stand and hunt somewhere else.